Hey, MikeRatner.com. It's still, what is it, it's the 11th today of January, so it's still New Year. NewYear'sSuccess.com for those that are into goal getting and planning out your new year. All the best to you, New Year's success. But that's not what I'm talking about today. So this is the promised video for those that were waiting for a follow-up from my just recent addition to Mike'sMastermind.com. Mike'sMastermind.com. So I'm putting together these ontological ideas. Far different cry from when I took the persona of Mike Rich in the Success Club. But still, we want to have an enriched life. Okay, so here's my backdrop. So it's a cold day outside, overcast too. But anyway, let's get right to it. So I came up with a new word. If you listened to the podcast this morning, not that I expect everyone to know that I even had a podcast or what I'm talking about, but we'll get into it. So this is going to be posted on grandtourideas.com, grandtourideas.com. And again, I'm MikeRatner.com. I do have MikeRich.org, but MikeRatner.com for these amazing writings and insights. So the word I came up with this morning came out of uh, looking at different German philosophers and the way they write. They actually create really long German words. Now, some already exist in their vocabulary, but they seem to add on to it to make one word, like, go on forever. It's like this is one word, one idea, one concept, and it has much depth to it. So it's really deep in their meanings. And of course, we don't really have a comparable analogy in English. So in my doing what I do, I came up with another word, but this is a German word combination. So I call it Welt, which stands for word, Schloss, which means for building, but looking at what we're building. But its medieval reference was more of a castle, or now in more contemporary times might be a really fine dwelling like a chateau, the Schloss. So anyway, you can find more about that on the podcast. Just go to mikesmastermind.com, and then this will be explanation on the video. The video will be on my grandtourideas.com. Now, why the Welt Schloss is an important word. So it's basically world disclosure, but from my analogy or viewpoint, it's coming into a certain sense of being, which is what my work is about, talking about ultra beingness, and also in context to the relationship we have with that perceived world. And I like the German word Welt because it's to me like being welded. There's a welt that could be grown from the face. No, it's really sort of what we're born into. So it fits in a little bit into Heidegger's philosophy and Husserl and a few others uh, that relate to sort of what we face and what we come against. Right? Could be yin and yang. Could be our karma coming due. But there's a fruition in the sense that we mature in our thinking, and as we grow, things then appear or disclose themselves to us. Now, it could be understanding a person's intentions or situations. Now, the term in itself, coming from world disclosure as a philosophical context, I'm going to frame it a little bit differently because um, I am looking for disclosure, but looking for what's coming from within me. The ability to be able to open up, and as I open up, I'm able to receive. So things come into more of an open screen for me to interpret. Now, I write a lot about morbidity, so if you understand where I'm coming from with this, and I hope you do because you'll find a condensation of the writings at grandtourideas.com, is that the morb sense is sort of a disoriented state of being. So dis being negative or a counterspin to what really would be more desirable and natural in our way of ultra being, which to me is the pinnacle peak of that Maslow pyramid, and it's going beyond just self-actualization, which is a key component. But there's a there's a transcendence component to it that gets us out of our story. Where morb, and its negative declarations and attitude, really just sort of keep it stuck. It's the modus operandi of rational behavior that's not fully realized to its capacity. So understanding this Weltschloss, it's sort of this world in the world as it's given to us, and as we come to know it, which through socialization and conditioning allow us to interpret things a way which we can get along in the world, the Welt, and the Schloss is what we're building. So this essence, and it can be sort of like in medieval times, or some people would call it ancient times, the king's dwelling, the desired place to be, the castle or the fine place, is our experience, let's say. So as experience reveals itself to us, we have what I hope is a deeper and greater interpretation of it, rather than just being in judgment and therefore limiting our perspective. Now, it doesn't mean that perspective coming from judgment might not have some truth or some inherent quality that needs to be fretted out or thought out or considered, because that's okay. But able to come to it from, you could say, source centered heartfulness, heart like centeredness, and being able to be heartfelt in the way that I have a sensitivity that's allowing, or really kind of, this is profound if you really understand this, on a divining level, a loving conversation to occur where I'm here to hear you. I'm really have deep listening going on, and it's not for any other agenda than to be a participant in the dialogue or in the space, which I describe as a metasphere experience. Because I got to move this a little bit because something just is like I see myself in the back. Oh, excuse me. Sorry about that. That could have been part of your Welt slosh. So that is the world being disclosed. And so I'm looking at this really from a number of different levels. And some people are going to say, well, you're totally not talking about what in philosophy we mean by this. This is my interpretation of it. And you can find this again at World. I was going to say, I don't have a website for this. I'm not going to buy every domain for every new name I come up with. And this is the first time I've created a new German word. I just come up with my own words, but this is totally two words coming together, Welt and slosh. So the slosh, it's kind of sloshing around. I kind of liked it. And if you listen to the podcast, you'll get more the determinants of how, where the roots and where that comes from. But anyway, let's get into it, because the dynamic and why I chose to record at this particular venture is that in the recording above, to where I put this onto my talk about the MEST. The MEST is my acronym for matter, energy, space, and time. We're looking at it not just from the physics and the physicality of just matter, energy, space, and time, but from the psychic analogy, because there's going to be a psychological intervention here that's going to allow us to function in the world. But within this morbid perspective, it becomes matters of concern, sort of emotional distraught. There's an energy disturbance, space invasion, time theft or loss. Maybe the quality of time is not as good as it could have been. So these engagements coming from ultra being is getting out of that old story or the realm that keeps things messed up, allows sort of this sort of Welt slosh to occur, where it's sort of like there could be a profound epiphany, perhaps, some kind of recognition of one's participation in the disclosure here that says, oh, I've been acting a certain way, or my thoughts not quite right. Once this ego element is removed, and that can be challenging, but we're talking about ultra beingness, where one is really steadfast in observation, the observer observed, and in this detached, there's more of an ultra beingness in what can be realized, because I'm not attached to the outcome anymore. I may desire something, that's okay, but the connection becomes a bit more, you could say, fluid. There's more connectivity to it because there's more of an allowing and an appreciation for what is. And that, or this, is an allowing for this disclosure to come forth, this Welt slosh. So we're building something that's naturally occurring because we have some recognition to it, and there could be a little appreciation or ignition to go, okay, we're okay at the starting point. There might be an agreed points to cover, like an agenda, but something that has perhaps a rule-based start to it. But if not, there's certainly respect and recognition of the other person or other participants and the quality of their engagement, so that we're really listening and attuned to other people's opinion, because their perspective, particularly in the position where they're in, needs to be better understood. And that's going to allow for this Welt slosh to kind of, in some cases, come undone. And it's so important, because there could have been something very restrictive that limited the perspective or the Welt slosh, because it was so welded on to the perspective. And it could have been your fault or the other person's fault. And legitimately, it could have been an issue that prevented sort of this dynamic to come together, because there was such dualism to it. And that can be very interesting in the experience and the spin of things, right? And the duality of life, the yin and yang. And now we come from this perspective to where the Welt slosh is allowing us to open up. And so the welts kind of fall away. And yet at the same time, it becomes revealing. And if you can get it from this non-judgmental point of view, we can appreciate it for what it was, because it's in the past, right? Because whatever was saw and experienced was yesterday. There could be something new that's profound, that's liberating, if we're seeing from this perspective. And this is sort of the world that we've created in disclosure, And in this way, perhaps as far as coming into a conscious connectivity, this allows sort of really, something that again opens up. I don't want to give it that particular term other than what I describe as ultra beingness. It's something that is profound in the way that it is felt and experienced because um, it is enlightening, however you define it and experience it, because it's engaging you and it's enticing, it's exciting in this realm. Now, again, putting nomenclature and names and label on it might limit it. So I'm just talking about in the Welt slosh. It's such a weird word, right? Welt slosh. But again, if you listen to the podcast at mikesmastermind.com, an explanation for the word, you get a little bit more of the appreciation of it. So we can say that we are in the world, the Welt, and how we perceive our world and what's been constructed in the world has created some sort of reality. And for the Morb, it's mostly about nouns. Its association to the world and known world is people, places, and things. It's a noun reality. So to get out of the morbidity, we have to have less of this internal dialogue that's other than recognized. It's okay to have internal dialogue. We all do. Some people, are talking to themselves out loud, and that's pretty bad if they're not aware of it. But we are because we're having to hear it. But if you're not hearing yourself talk on the ID level of internal dialogue, which is made up, right, of cringe factors, the other writing you can find at the bottom of this page, cringefactors.com, which creates artificial entification, which is really a serious um, impediment to experiencing ultra being states because we want to be free. So there could be an appreciation of lessons learned and new insights that come about this Welt slosh. And this is our ability to engage, to see it for what it is. And if there might be something that comes to judgment or you want to take a position on it, you're a bit more agile so that you're not sort of stuck in one perspective of things. You're able to sort of look on the other side. But, and the holistic aspect of it is that instead of having to think all the time, there's just a sense of knowingness because it's being revealed or disclosed to yourself, by yourself, or just through your observation. This gets a little bit into my theory of mind writing called BIDEC, and there's links below to that too. BIDEC, BIDECK, .masstrance.com, like mass trance of society, hypnosis. So the BIDEC basically is our filtering processes, and it's our mind in the ability to function, to have a mind, and to have a sense of your mind and what the kind of thinking that's going on. That's the BIDEC, and it happens on different levels. So if we're talking about an ultra beingness, there is a sense of attunement and having a connection to this Welt slosh, because it is the world being created onto us. It's projected reality. At the same time, it is what it is. It is messed up. It's matter, energy, space, and time that's universal and it's perpetual. So we can just be okay with it. Now, if there's something that needs attention or addressing, we're better able from this whole brain perspective, right? This Welt slosh that's sort of become a bit more attuned and balanced because we're coming a bit more from the source of appreciating it or observing it and studying it. That's going to give us a bit more agility. And this freedom is profound because it's going to allow this connectivity that we had. And, I think some great stories about where you might have a really great connection with someone, but you messed it up. So it's sort of like, well, are you trying to manipulate that connection? Are you trying to sort of fix it or heal it? So it has to come from a way where this Welt slosh is sort of felt and at the same time acknowledged and then worked through. And the working through is really a process of you being with it. So as this connectivity happens and allow it to flow, it might be able to be directed, particularly if it's a cooperation in this regard, an agreement that this is the premise, and ideally this is where we want to go, without the assumption that this is necessarily going to be that way, right? We don't want to. We take ownership of our own thoughts and our projections, and also be able to pull back and go, oh, my fault, my assumption, me bad, but to correct yourself. So if you fall down flat on your face, the Welt slosh picks you back up because you had a sense of it. All right, I'm corrected on it. You're not having to defend anything anymore, other than maybe the integrity of the argument. That there's something that you really did feel. So it's heartfelt. It's important for you, and you make that a dynamic in this connection, and in the Welt slosh realm. It's profound in the sense that all possibilities then become present, and it's your potential, the possibility that's present, not what you do with it, because it's sort of a gift, right? The present moment, and how you handle the here and now. Some people, like myself, have been in many situations where I've just totally blown it. I had the chance, and what did you do? It just, right? But you learn and you grow. And that's what the Welt Schloss is offering. So the world building is that we have something that is existing and it's built, and depending on its interpretation, much of it given to us by society and the conditioning and the mass trance, also allows us to see something that's profound within it. Because it potentially could be the escape from the mass trance, or at least what I call the waking up of, self-liberation, getting out of our stories, particularly the past that limited us and protect, it may have protected that ego, but now I'm not defending it anymore. We really want to let go, as Guy Finley would say, because this is going to allow for, not just new opportunity, but newness itself. Because what presents itself then in this Welt Schloss is like sort of the dynamic of the universe or the cosmos, if you want to really get esoteric and new age. It's just this profound possibility that exists between us. And this connectivity through our communication, our way of being, and our practice of being present is what brings this forth. But yet, when it brings forth, it's also a reflection, like a mirror, how I'm seeing it and how I'm seeing myself. And yet, when I get out of this judgment in this created world, something new can be built if we're going to build something. Because it's going to allow a new foundation, something that's really clean and clear, hopefully, right? At least that's the intention for our exploration. Again, this can be found. So Welt Schloss. I don't know how often I'm going to use that word, but it was appropriate for today in continuing the writing between the mess and the morb, what we're creating and what we're building. And again, you can find a lot of links to this at the bottom of my collection of writing at oh, isn't that something? I hope you enjoyed Welt Schloss today. But you can find this all at grandtourideas.com, grandtourideas.com, and I'm MikeRatner.com. Thank you so much. Please share these ideas. I know it's kind of interesting. Some are going to be like, ooh, I don't get it. But, it's like, I don't quite either, but there's something here. And so I'm putting the words together of the world we built. And so maybe we're going to deconstruct it, or maybe we're going to find ways to better collaborate or get that connection. So there's a clearing perhaps, and for some, a healing. This would be the grounding of a loving conversation.com, one of my projects, lovingconversations.com, looking at a map or an opportunity to sort of balance things out that will allow, because I'm very permission oriented. We want to go there have an understanding of what's involved and that it's okay. And once it is okay and defined that way, and we're all nodding our heads, we want this, we proceed. And there might be sort of, it could be something that, a little bit cautionary, fear, I don't know, not necessarily. It's really just something more where, to me, I'm anticipating a really great, loving conversation, and this is the connection. Yes? All right. So, Welt Schloss, check it out at grandtourideas.com. Thank you.